So going back to the games, as I said, I started off with a lot of pirated stuff. There was one game I'm still looking for. I've got the complete Spectrum catalogue on digital, that is. I need to go through it and try to find it, but there was like a Donkey Kong game I used to play. It was like Donkey Kong, but it was also with ladders and it had conveyor belts and stuff, and I remember playing that and I really loved it. But I think it was when Renegade came out. It was roughly around about then when I really started to think Spectrum is like the best thing ever. I still love my Spectrum though, but I find it hard to play Spectrum games. We've been pandered to too much through the years, and now games are so dumbed down. When you go back to something that's of retro kind of quality, it's really hard. It's really hard to get back into that kind of mind frame that it's not going to help you, it's not going to hold your hand, it's not going to tell you after 10 minutes, oh, go this way. And even playing Renegade on stream, I think we got to the red light district level. I think that's as far as I got on the stream. It is hard. I'm not going to lie, it was really hard to get that far. And I remember I could complete the game. I mean, the worst part of Renegade is the last level, because literally the guy shoots you once, you die. And I couldn't even get that far. So it just shows you have to have that right mind frame. I think that's what it is. You need to kind of get your inner retro back, kind of mind frame back. But yeah, Renegade's where it basically first started. Now, after that, it was pretty much every Christmas I got a computer game from Christmas for my Spectrum. And there's been a couple of testing moments, will we say, with computer games, especially for the Spectrum. One of the worst ones would probably be Robocop. Robocop's a really good game, but I got that from Boots, and Christmas Day, yes, got Robocop, put it on, wouldn't load. Like, oh, okay. So, tried the technique. Sometimes if you hold down the play button, it pushes it in a little bit further into the cassette, and sometimes that helps. It does with Hostages, my version of Hostages that I own. You cannot play the game unless you hold down the play button for some reason. It has to be like pushed in to the cassette more, and that's how it works. But Robocop was one of the first times that I realised that not all plain sailing with Spectrums. It wasn't like you just press play, wait for it to load, and then that's it. Oh no, this game would not load. So I had to go back. I got another version of it. It didn't work. So it took about a month to get a version of Robocop that actually worked. Even to this day, it still kind of puts me off playing that game, because I always think the game's not going to load. Which kind of really sucks. Yeah, I mean, because Robocop, if you've ever played Robocop in the Spectrum, it's like a really good conversion. I mean, they've actually expanded on the actual arcade game. I mean, they can't do everything on a Spectrum. They can't have like Ed 209 running toward, walking towards you, shooting at you and all that, but they expanded it. And it wasn't until, I think I played Robocop a couple of months ago. I think that's when I clicked that the arcade version of Robocop starts as level 2 on the Spectrum. And I didn't click. I did not click that that's how it happened. So, as I said, finding all these things now, it makes you think, oh, what else have I missed on the Spectrum? And it makes you want to play more games that you used to play. So yeah. So that's the story of Robocop. I remember as well, I mean, in '89 I got Batman the movie for the Spectrum. Now, the reason I wanted that was I actually saw the Amiga version. And I remember going over to my friend, I was obsessed with an Amiga in '89. And I was wanting the Batman pack. I never got the Batman pack, by the way. I never got an Amiga in '89 at all. I mean, like I said, I don't get everything that I want, but I get most things when I was a kid. I remember seeing Batman on the Amiga, and I was just like, holy shit, this sound, the graphics, everything was just like, oh my god, I've never seen this before. Smooth scrolling, you name it. And I remember going over to my friend at the time's place, and I actually put a cassette recorder next to his TV and just recorded the whole soundtrack. I got Batman for my Christmas, and my mum and dad didn't know that I knew I had it. So basically, the short version is I found it where my mum and dad stored all their Christmas presents. So I knew I was getting Batman the movie for my Christmas, which did not spoil it one bit because I was waiting for that game. Yeah, that was great. But like over the years, I mean, it's like I should really do like a top 10, like what is my favourite Spectrum games. I don't even know what number 1 would be, to be honest. But it's the nostalgia of buying things from a store as well. I mean, I know you can still buy games for like your PlayStation 5 and all that in stores, but back then, you either had to go into like a store like Woolworths or Boots to get your games. You could send away to like the Littlewoods catalogue, you'd be waiting over 30 days. If you bought something back from Next, that's what it was Next it was called, it was in the part, was it not Next? Next was a part of Littlewoods, right? You would have to order something, like I wanted Bad Dudes versus Ninja, Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, I think that's what it was called. The only way you could get that was through the Littlewoods Next catalogue. And it took 30 days. It took 30 days to show up and the game didn't work. That sucked. But it took 30 days and it didn't work. We had to send it back, we had to wait for it to be sent back, and then they sent out a new version. So you were talking about maybe 2 to 3 months before you actually got the game. That sucked. But then, as I said, most places did stock most games. Basically what you would do is you would go in, you would go down the stairs, and then to the back right is where all the Spectrum games were. It was just like a wrap around basically, and you could walk down. It was like an L-shape kind of part for the Spectrum. And I used to love going in there. The other one was Woolworths. Woolworths used to be a double store. It's now, I don't know what's on the left or right, but one part of where Woolworths was is now a McDonald's down the high street. And they had 2 sets of double doors spread apart from each other, and you'd go in, the first thing you would see is all the records, and then you had the stairs to go downstairs. If you went downstairs to the right side of the stairs, right behind the bottom of the stairs was where all the mask figures was. I remember that. But I remember if you wanted to get to the Spectrum cabinet, you would go into the back of the store, the level of the store, like the main floor, and they had a cabinet full of Spectrum games, locked away for some reason. And I just used to stand there just like drooling over Spectrum games, like, oh, Spectrum. I was obsessed with Spectrum back then. I really was. I still am a big fanboy of the Spectrum, to be honest. Bought a lot of games over the years. I mean, I wish I had my stuff out of storage just now so I could literally talk about everything. I could probably tell you about when I bought the things and all that. But, yeah. It was kind of like Spectrum games came in big boxes, like kind of like the Amiga-sized boxes, or they came in like a smaller version. Like Batman the movie came in like a half-size box, and then you had the normal kind of plastic cassette holder kind of version that came, just looked like a normal like audio tape. And I remember getting Dizzy. I never actually got Dizzy, the first Dizzy to start with. I actually got Treasure Island Dizzy. I got it back before I could actually play it on a 128K. So I remember like hearing, I mean the music sounded great on the 48K, but I remember getting it I remember playing it on my 128K, and actually did Treasure Island Dizzy come with other music? I don't think it did. But I remember certain games that came out, and like I got Cybernoid 2 from it was a garage sale. It was like a car boot sale. And I liked the cover, and I'm like, oh, I want that. I want that, so I went and bought it. I keep saying I wanted that. I was not a child that wanted things. I mean, I asked for things, and normally got, okay, or no, you'll get it later on. You get it for your Christmas. But I remember I bought that with pocket money, I think it was. I used to walk the dog. Literally around the street, and that was it. And got paid for it. It was great. I think it was like 50p a time. Which is not great, I mean, because I know kids get a lot more than that. Oh yeah, I got Cybernoid 2, and I didn't even know that game came with proper music until later on in life. And I'm like, oh, okay. I think I got it before I got my 128K, I think that's what it was. But you know, it came with like music if you put it to the 128K mode. What was that again? There's a couple of games where you had to like load in the levels in the 48K, but if you played the 128K, you actually loaded the whole game into memory. Which was life-changing, to be honest, because if you ever try to play a game where it keeps telling you to load the cassette, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was one of those games where it's just like, okay, next level, press play and tape, and then you have to wait like another 4 minutes or whatever. 4 minutes, it doesn't, I mean, that sounds like a lot, it's not back then. You're kind of used to it. And if you're a BAM like me, I actually liked the sound of the Spectrum loading. I don't know why, but the Spectrum just kind of soothes me. It's just a noise. A scary amount of noise. I do remember that the 128K had some games that they would load the whole game into memory. I have fond memories of Eurosinclair. I used to love getting Eurosinclair. I used to go up to the local Asda, and if they didn't have it, I walked all the way down to the McCall's, or RS McCall's it was called back then. And it was a highlight of the month going to get that, to see Linda Barker and all that, and all that, and whoever else was in it, just talking about shit basically. One of the worst things I ever had to do was, my mum said to me once, she's like, you need to tidy up your room. She says, you need to get rid of stuff you don't use. And I had all my magazines stacked up. I had all my Amiga formats, I had all my Your Sinklers, and she's like, what are you doing with these? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, it either goes out, or you're going to have to make space for it, because your room's an absolute shambles. It's literally full of like dance music and records and computer games, and she's like, you need to get rid of stuff. And under pressure, and my mum actually said she regretted saying this to me later on. She actually said she regretted saying it to me. She said to me, it either goes or you make space for it. So I end up throwing out all my magazines, and I still regret that to this day. I mean, yes, I know you can get PDFs of everything now, but it's not the same. I have thought about rebuying them all, but trying to get them on eBay is, I mean, I wish somebody would just sell the whole freaking lot. Even if they were like 50 quid, I'd buy it. Yeah, I had to throw out my Spectrum magazines, which was just like one of the worst things except from damaging or destroying the Spectrum 48K, that's the other thing that kind of really put me over the edge. I mean, not in a bad way, but just like, what have I done? And yeah, I still think about it every so often, to be honest. But then, what would I do with them, really? Nothing. They would literally just be lying there doing bugger all. But I think this is what it comes down to is, as I was saying earlier, nostalgia is things that you remember. And sometimes nostalgia needs to be stimulized as such with actually owning it. I go through phases where I'm literally sitting, like, working away, and I'm like, I need to go and buy this. I need to go and buy that. And it's always something from the yesteryear, something that I got rid of that I shouldn't have. I mean, I've had so many times that I wanted to go into eBay and buy Your Sinclair magazines. I never used them. I'm stuck in the past, that's what it is. So anyway, go back to computer games. Now, The Great Escape was another game that I used to love playing. I still can't complete that game. I know what I'm supposed to do, but I still can't do it. But when I was a kid in the 80s, I used to love just running outside into the dark, watching the spotlights trying to find you. I thought it was great trying to not get caught. I never actually played the game for what it was. I've spoken about this as well, Harrier Attack. The Spectrum version is the only version out of the 8-bit consoles that had a textured floor that actually moved. Which I still think is amazing to this day that they actually accomplished that on the Spectrum, but they couldn't do it on an Amstrad or Commodore 64. Some games were better on the Spectrum as well. Now, this is where my brain's not going to work. I'm trying to remember what was better. I think Robocop on the Spectrum was better than the Amiga. I've got most of the Dizzy collection on Spectrum. I got them on cassette, but I've also got them on the multi-pack, where you get like the big box, where you get like Dizzy and the Rapids and all that kind of stuff. The problem with Dizzy is they kind of tried to make him like a mascot, and that's where things go shit. I mean, Dizzy went from being Dizzy to being everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Quick Snacks is an alright game. Dizzy and the Rapids, I don't really remember what that game is like, to be honest. But when something starts out as like something, as in like an adventure game, trying to make them into something that it's not doesn't always work. It's like trying to say like Rainbow Islands is going to become a shooter. It wouldn't work. Or maybe it would actually, that's a good idea. Maybe I should make up a game of Rainbow Islands where you shoot everything. But there's a lot of other games that I remember. I remember the Sentinel. I love the Sentinel and the Amiga, but I remember playing it on the Spectrum for the first time, and the Sentinel is a really creepy game. I remember playing the text adventure games. One where you started off in a wagon and you got shot by Indians. That was a really cool game. I never completed it though. I remember Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy on the Spectrum. My mate Kenny used to love playing that game, but we could never get past the Babelfish bit, because you literally had to do about 20 things to get the Babelfish to go into his ear. I think he actually did get past that though, at some point. I actually designed a text adventure game based on aliens. Never released it though. I can't remember what it was called. It was like a text adventure editor that got released on one of the magazines, I think it was. And I actually made up a text adventure game. It was really cool. I remember when the 3D construction kit came out, and the only way you could buy it was to buy it from a certain address or a phone number or something in the back of a magazine. The magazines basically had a lot of articles. They also had a lot of things to do with Spectrum or Amiga, whatever. They also had a lot of articles about you can buy this game for this number, write to this address, give us money, give us loads of money. And the only way you could get the 3D construction kit was through one of these magazines. at the time. I think it actually finally got released into the stores, but the one I've got is like a silver and blue to it tint, and it didn't look a thing like what I saw, because the 3D construction kit was a black box with a ribbon type design around it, as far as I remember, with a cube in the middle, at the top left or right. My one came in a weird box. It was like metallic blue and silver. That's the only way I could describe it. And I am going somewhere with this. The thing with the magazines is they always showed you the best looking one. And every time I thought the Spectrum version was going to be like that. Which is stupid, because the Spectrum could only do like, what, 6 colours, 8 colours? Not even 8 colours probably. While the Amiga could do up to, well, between 16 to 32 roughly, we'll say. Sometimes 64 if you're doing still stuff. And I always thought the Spectrum game was going to look like what it showed you in the back of the cover of the magazine, or in the articles, or the buy bits. When you go back to things, you're like, damn, that was shit. And to be honest, the 3D construction kit was shit. I used to like it back then, but now it's just like, it's just the worst. I mean, maybe I should do something on that. Maybe I should do a stream on the 3D construction kit and try to remember how to use it. I mean, like I said, I've got the box somewhere. I've got the magazine. I've got the manual and all that, so I could probably stream it as such. I'll emulate it, but I could stream it and have the kind of manual how to use it and all that, and maybe make up a small game. Put up the file up for somebody else to try out. I think that was the one thing that bugged me about the Spectrum was it's the same as everything else. Like, it's like nowadays. Well, I'd say it's not the same nowadays actually, because nowadays they literally just show you like the console version, and it's like, oh, this is how it looks, and you know how most consoles games look the same nowadays anyway, unless you're going for a Switch, because the Switch can't do shit. I love a Switch, don't get me wrong, but it can't do anything like the PlayStation 5 or anything. But back in the day, they would show you the best looking version of the game, and they would try to say, like, even like if you bought the Spectrum version, they might show you the actual Amiga graphics in the back of the box. No joking. Or it'll say various formats on the back, or something like that. I don't think they wouldn't be allowed to do that nowadays. They would have to show you exactly what you're buying if it was like a Spectrum nowadays. But back then, they didn't give a shit. As long as you bought the game, that's how it went. But there's a lot of cool games out for the Spectrum that I remember buying, and I mean, I'm glad I bought them, and I'm glad I experienced them back in the day, and I'm still glad I still own them. I mean, I have no idea if the tapes work, but for me, it's like I've been buying a lot of stuff lately, and I don't really care if they work or not. It's more just to have them in the background. It's like, I own that. It might not work, but I own it. I mean, I wouldn't go and buy a game knowing it's broke. But, I mean, when you've had something for 30 odd years, you have to get to that kind of point where you understand it's probably not going to work in another 10 years. So yeah, I understand that everything I own will not work at some point. But at the same time, I have it. I've got Robocop 3 on the Spectrum, and it's worth a fortune. It probably won't work now. But I think there might even be somebody out there who will buy it just to say, I own this, like I do. I own it. I want to own Moonstone on the Amiga, but I'm not paying 300-400 quid for it. I'm not that stupid, or not yet anyway. But I think a lot of people just want to buy it for that price, so they own it. They own the physical version of it that was released. Because Robocop 3 came out at the end of its life, the Spectrum's life. Now this is something else I should mention. If you have anything that's towards an end of a computer or console's life, keep it. It's always the things at the end of something's shelf life that is worth more. That's why I've still got my Robocop 3, because you never know, in a couple of, like 10 years time, it might be worth 300 quid. And by then, maybe we'll just get rid of it because I'll be old. I'm like, I'm never going to play that again. I don't care. I'll probably lost my memory by then. Leave a message in the comment if you'd like me to continue doing this, or if there's something you want me to talk about. I mean, I could do a YouTube video on the Amiga, the first generation of consoles. Bye for now.